All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty wild. We're talking about Kopi Luwak, a coffee that's famous for being one of the absolute most expensive on Earth. But its price tag isn't even the most shocking thing about it. Let's just jump right in with a question. What if the world's most luxurious coffee also had a really dark secret? Yeah, because this story, it's so much more than just a fancy coffee bean. We're talking about a blend of nature, some pretty surprising history, and, a huge ethical mess that has the entire specialty coffee world buzzing. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about what put this coffee on the map. What makes Kopi Luwak so famous? Honestly, it boils down to one simple, staggering thing: the price. And when I say expensive, I mean, wow. We're talking up to $600 for a single pound. And that's for the real, authentic stuff from the wild. A price like that just screams luxury, right? It puts it in a whole different league. So you gotta ask, what on earth makes it cost so much? Well, here's the twist. The secret isn't really the coffee bean itself. It's the journey that bean takes. And there's no delicate way to put this. Kopi Luwak, or civet coffee, is made from beans that have been, well, eaten, digested, and then passed by a small animal called the Asian palm civet. Yep, you heard that right. And as weird as that sounds, this process actually has a really fascinating backstory. Picture this: it's the 18th century in Indonesia. Local farmers are working on coffee plantations under Dutch colonial rule. But here's the catch: they're not allowed to actually pick any of the coffee for themselves. So what do? They get creative. They noticed that these little civet animals were leaving behind coffee beans in their droppings. So they started collecting them, cleaning them up, and roasting them. It was this incredible workaround. Fast forward to the 1980s, and this once humble brew just explodes onto the scene and becomes the global luxury item we know today. So let's get into the science of it, the how behind the whole thing. We're going to look at this really unique biological process. You could almost call it nature's own fermentation method. This is the real secret behind that legendary flavor. When this happens out in the wild, it's this amazing, completely natural four-step dance. First, you've got the selection. Think of the civets as the world's pickiest coffee experts. They use their incredible sense of smell to find and eat only the absolute best, ripest coffee cherries. Then comes the magic part: digestion. For the next day or two, special enzymes in the civet's gut go to work, fermenting the beans and breaking down proteins. After that, step 3 is collection. Farmers just go out into the forest and gather the droppings with the beans still intact. And finally, the beans are thoroughly washed and processed, just like any other high-end coffee. It's pretty amazing, right? And that whole process, that's the why behind the insane price tag and all the hype. That journey through the civet's digestive system literally strips away a lot of the bitterness and acidity from the bean. What you're left with is this famously smooth coffee with these incredible notes of chocolate and caramel. And hey, bonus, it even has about 25% less caffeine. But here's where the story takes a really sharp and honestly a very disturbing turn. As word got out and demand for this coffee just went through the roof, things changed. This is where we get to that dark secret we mentioned at the start. See, here's the thing. The math just doesn't work. Globally, experts estimate that only about 500 to maybe 1,000 pounds of genuine, wild-collected Kopi Luwak are produced each year. That's not a lot. And yet you can find it for sale all over the place. The market is just flooded with it. So it makes you wonder, right? Where is all this other coffee coming from? And the answer, unfortunately, is pretty grim. A staggering 90%, that's right, 90, of the Kopi Luwak sold around the world comes from civets that are kept in cages. They're basically being farmed for the sole purpose of churning out these coffee beans on a massive scale. And when we say farmed, don't picture some idyllic scene. The conditions are just awful. Multiple investigations by animal welfare groups have uncovered a really bleak reality. These animals are often kept in tiny, filthy wire cages. They're force-fed an unhealthy diet of nothing but coffee cherries, which leads to all sorts of health problems. They suffer from intense stress, injuries that go untreated. It's a nightmare. This factory farm horror show is the reality hidden behind that luxury price tag. Okay, so after hearing all that, you might be wondering, is there any way to try this stuff without supporting that cruelty? If you're still curious, how can you try to make an ethical choice? Let's talk about that. Honestly, it's tough. It takes some serious detective work. The absolute must-have is an official certification that says 100% wild-sourced. You also want full traceability, meaning they can tell you exactly where it came from. And here's a weird tip. Be prepared to pay a lot. That super high price we talked about, it's actually a good sign because it reflects the true rarity. On the flip side, you want to avoid anything with vague words like farmed or even free range. And if a seller can't give you rock-solid proof of where it came from, it's probably best to just walk away. The good news is there are a couple of other truly ethical options starting to pop up. The absolute gold standard is what's called 100% wild gathered. This means farmers literally just walk through the forest and collect the droppings, leaving the civets completely alone and undisturbed. And get this, science is getting in on the action too. Researchers are actually developing ways to mimic the civet's digestion in a lab using synthetic enzymes, so we could get that same flavor profile without involving any animals at all. Pretty cool, right? So, we've been through the history, the biology, and the pretty intense controversy. Where does that leave us? What's the final takeaway here? I think this quote really hits the nail on the head. Kopi Luwak's story is, well, it's two things at once. On one hand, it's this incredible testament to nature's cleverness. But on the other, it's a really stark cautionary tale about what happens when human greed takes a rare natural wonder and tries to turn it into a mass-produced product. And so, in the end, it all comes down to a single, powerful question you have to ask yourself. Knowing that there's such a high risk, a really high risk, of supporting a deeply cruel industry, is any unique flavor, any single cup of coffee really worth it? That's a decision that ultimately is up to you.